and then another electric guitar solo. So I said, well, 3 electric guitar solos, one after the other, is perhaps a bit much. Well, how about a saxophone? He went, saxophone? That's a jazz instrument. I'm a folk rocker. And but he accepted the concept of getting a sax player in, and we did it, and he loved it. And to cut a long story short, the sax player joined his band. Phil Kenzie, his name was Phil Kenzie.
And did you come up with the arrangement, or was it you brought Phil in and said, let's try a few different things?
It's improvised. I mean, Phil's a great player, so I mean, you can't write. It would have been very difficult to write down exactly note for note what he played, because I mean, there's some notes that he played that are beyond the theoretical range of the instrument. So there's some really high notes in there.
Not being a sax player, I have no idea, but the gentleman that Al has playing with him seems to be
yeah, he was great. Yeah,
doing it pretty well.
Good player.
Ambrosia was here. We did a Q&A with them the other day, and they talked about how they first learned about you and then reached out to you. So I have to get your side of this story. So they said they looked up the phone number to Abbey Road Studios and went through the like we hear it here, and you actually picked up the phone.
A voice said Abbey Road Studios, and it was me. Because late at night, all the office staff have gone home, and if the phone's ringing at the front desk, you just picked it up, and we were able to patch it through to whoever the phone call was for. But it was for me, and it was this gentleman called Gordon Parry, who was well known as a classical music engineer at Decca Studios, which is just down the road from Abbey Road. And he was a lovely, very jovial, middle-aged chap, maybe even back then. And he said, I'm working with this super group called Ambrosia. You must come and hear them. And so I told him that I was coming out for the Grammy Awards, because I'd got my first Grammy Award nomination for Dark Side of the Moon, and out I went, and I met him. Out I went and heard the stuff, and we came to an arrangement, and I was back there within a month working with him.
So was this in the period, so obviously, as you referred to, Dark Side was done. Pink Floyd actually asked you to work with them on Wish You Were Here, but you turned that down.
I did turn it down because my production career was already underway by then. I'd already had a hit or two. I'd had a hit with Pilot's Magic, and also doing well with an English band called Steve Harley and Courtney. Any English guys here? You remember Steve Harley and Courtney Rebel? Yeah. They never really crossed the Atlantic like I'd hoped. But same thing had happened with John Miles. I had 3 big pop single acts: Pilot, John Miles, and Courtney Rebel. And I turned down the Floyd because there I had a production career already going, and the job offer they gave me to work on Wish You Were Here and be their full-time recording engineer and live engineer. It was a generous offer, but I did feel I made the right decision to turn it down. Although I'm still sad to this day that we only made 1 record together.
And no doubt psychologists too, working with at least 2 of the members, or 1 in particular. But it had to be certainly, everybody does talk about that album. But I want to go back a little further, 18 years old. The story about how you got the job at Abbey Road Studios is quite fascinating. So you were in the EMI family. And why don't you tell that story? You were doing something completely different, or semi-related, but
It was an associated department that I was working for EMI. I was in West London, in Hayes. It was a tape record factory. It was called the Tape Records Town, and we were making reel-to-reel albums on this is before cassettes. I mean, I really am that old. This was before cassettes came along. It was little 3-inch plastic spools with albums on them in mono, and you put it on your tape deck and you played it, and then you turned it over, and so it still had the side 1 and side 2 concept, which was rather nice. And but yes, it was an associated department to Abbey Road, and we would get master tapes sent over from Abbey Road to duplicate for foreign record factories to make their products, and of course for this tape duplication facility. So I was one of the first people to hear some of the albums coming out of Abbey Road, and of course Sgt. Pepper was one of those albums. And at that point I said, I think I'd like to get a job at Abbey Road, and soon after I was working there. So.
And so, but you pretty much, you cold called over there to whoever the chief engineer was, or?
I wrote to the manager of the studio, said, gave him my CV essentially, and he granted me an interview, and then 2 weeks later, after that, I was working there. So.
Wow, that's great.
As a trainee, I wasn't. They didn't throw me in front of the console on the first day.
But there were a lot of legendary producers to come out of there, so were you under any one specific tutelage?
And actually, that album just got released quite recently on a record collecting label. Once I was established at Abbey Road, I pretty much gave up the musician side of me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always nice to go and play the piano if there's nothing going on, or pick up a guitar and mess around. But I didn't see my career as going forward as a musician, only as an engineer and producer. So,
and
songwriting just became an ancillary thing.
But even though it was dubbed the Alan Parsons Project, I mean, there was sort of also a shroud of mystery around it too, because you did bring in different singers along the way for a lot of the recordings. If my memory's correct, there wasn't touring in those early days, so it just sort of just be...
No, it was a decision we made that we would not tour. We would make this just a purely recording outfit. And what... The question we asked ourselves was, what does Alan Parsons, the producer, do on a live stage? I mean, do I warm up the audience, tell a few jokes? So that was the dilemma.
But did you do magic then? He's
I've always done magic. Yeah.
Oh, so well, you could have done that.
Yeah, I mean, on reflection, I think it was a big mistake. I think we should have put a live act together. Because I think we could have been as big as any of the acts of the time had we played live, but we chose not to. So.
But therein lies a challenge, though. Had you not having a dedicated singer, really, I mean, I know Eric sang a little bit, but and I don't think that was until the 4th or 5th album that he even did that.
That's right.
So,
but it was a trademark. It was the fact that you would never hear the same singer on 2 consecutive songs. That was our trademark. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I loved the fact that you could pick and choose, the right singer for the right song.
That had to be difficult, though. I mean, I'm sure you must have had a wish list on one hand, and you got some great names to sing.
Well, that was another nice thing about working at a big studio like that. I got to meet a lot of people. And Alan Clark of the Hollies right away said on the second album, yes, I'll gladly sing a song for you. Colin Blunstone, of course, and John Miles, I've worked with on his stuff. He was completely ready to work with me as a singer on somebody else's record. And the rhythm section was essentially Pilot. The bass player was David Payton, the guy who sang Magic. Everybody knows the song Magic, right? Ian Benson, the guitar player, and Stuart Tosh, who was the original Pilot drummer, played on the first 2 albums, and then he was taken over by Stuart Elliott of Cockney Rebel. So you can see it was all kind of incestuous.
All in the family, as it were. So, and then years later, the decision to actually come out from behind the curtain and tour. Wasn't that in the 90s? It wasn't that long ago. Well, I guess the 90s is a while back already, but
it was 95.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, that was kind of a big to-do at the time.
Yeah, but you consider that it took 20 years for us to actually go on the road from 1976 for the first album, almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And 95 is quite a gap and quite an achievement actually to have sold as many records without a touring act.
Yeah.
So we were rather proud of that, really.
Well, you should be.
Which is that it was Mary Poppins, not Elizabeth.
All right, on your right, Alan, and then up here in the last row, this gentleman here has a question for you, sir.
Hi, on A Valid Path, where did John Cleese's dialogue come from in his rambling about 1642? Where did that? Did you write that? Did he write that, or was it off the cuff?
It came. He was in another studio in Santa Barbara recording a promotional radio program for the release of one of the Monty Python DVDs. I think it was Life of Brian. And I just got permission from his manager to use a little snippet from what his ramblings on that occasion. The DJ was a guy called Sonny somebody, and he said, "Come on, Sonny, why don't you ask me a more interesting question, like when was Cardinal Richelieu? What year did he die?" And the answer was 1642. So that, but it just seemed a nice way to round off the album. And I'm a huge Python fan, so we would during the making of Dark Side of the Moon, we would go and disappear and watch Monty Python and come back and resume work.
All right, and in
there's a young lady down here who.
Yep, I'll get to her. This gentleman here in the center.
Everything that used to cost money is now free, and everything that used to be free is now cost money. So recording music, it's a very difficult subject to know the answer to. But I mean, the upside is that as long as people want to hear music live, they will pay for it. Yeah. And that's why this cruise is such a privilege to be on, because everybody's here to listen to live music, and that's the future. Recorded music is not in good shape right now.
So what you're saying is the 50 pounds a week's not cutting it for you anymore?
Yeah.
All right, we got time for two more, and then we've got